shall I go? What shall I do?
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Behave yourselves!
Snow, I long to clear a path and lift a spade of snow.
Snow, to see a great big man entirely made of snow.
Snow, where it's snowing all winter through, that's where I want to be.
Snowball throwing, that's what I'll do. How I'm longing to ski through the snow.
Hello, YouTubers out there. This is Jerry Saravia at the movies. So today we're looking at a second Christmas movie, of which I've only seen portions of in the past, and that is 1954's White Christmas, which celebrated its 70th anniversary this year. And it was part of AMC's Fathom events. Unfortunately, I did not get to see this movie in theaters, but I would like to have seen it for sure. So instead I saw it on Amazon Prime. Oh well, that's how it goes. Anyway, I got to really fully see it, and it's an entertaining, lively, upbeat type of movie. I mean, this is essentially a Christmas movie in every sense of the word. There's no question about it. It stars Bing Crosby as Bob Wallace, who's a Broadway star and singer, basically. And then we got Danny Kaye as Phil Davis, who's an aspiring singer and dancer. Now, the two of them, they are fighting during World War II, and it begins in Europe in 1944, I believe. And before they're being bombarded by bombs from the enemy, they're performing amongst all this rubble with a bunch of soldiers from this regiment for them, and they're singing. He sings right away at the beginning of the movie. Bing Crosby sings "White Christmas," and eventually the Major General Tom Waverly, played by Dean Jagger, arrives at this particular location because this was sort of an unauthorized musical act for the troops, and is rather taken by it. But then, of course, the bombs start, and so Phil. Once again, Danny Kaye saves Bob from a collapsing wall during this bombing situation. He injures his arm. When he visits Phil at the hospital, it looks like he has a sling and he's been injured, but then he removes his arm to pick something up, so naturally he's wondering, was he really injured or not? So Bob is in Broadway and he's doing his solo act, which he's known for, but Phil wants to have a duet. They want to go on tour as both Wallace and Davis. So that's kind of what forms the rest of the picture. And of course, Bob Wallace is a little unsure about this. Does he really want to do a duet with this guy and go on the road? But eventually he agrees. And the running gag in this movie, at least for a little while, is that Phil keeps telling him, hey, I saved you during the war, so, you owe me, kind of thing. Then they run into the sister act, and they are Rosemary Clooney, who's wonderful in this movie, as Betty Haynes. And then there's her sister, Judy Haynes, played by Vera Ellen, also wonderful in this picture. They want Bob to see the act, and maybe they can work something out and get, I guess an agent and all that kind of thing. Anyhow, as the movie progresses, they decide to go to Vermont. And the idea is that Phil Davis is kind of smitten with Judy Haynes. And he's hoping that Bob, who's kind of, a little older and a bit lonely, he might be smitten with Betty. So that's kind of what forms this romantic comedy type thing in it. And so they go to Vermont. It is there that they discover that the Major General, Tom Waverly, is running this Vermont ski resort where they're receiving no snow whatsoever. So they have no customers. Nobody's there to see anything. As far as staying at this, the Columbia Inn, it's called. So the hope is that they can maybe bring their musical act there, which they do, but there's nobody there to watch. So what are they going to do? Waverly receives a rejection letter because he's thinking about trying to rejoin the army. and he's rejected. So to cheer up the general, Bob decides that it would be a good idea to reunite the old Army regiment. He tells the Broadway producer, Ed Harrison, about this, hoping to have some help to make this an actual event for the general. And the producer has this idea that maybe it would be good to get free publicity for Wallace and Davis. So therefore, they would film this whole thing, and Bob is not too sure about that. He's, doesn't really want to make it so obvious that the general needs a little bit of help at this Vermont inn where he's getting no customers whatsoever because there's no snow and it's Christmas time. The movie then, what it does is there's a housekeeper who overhears the conversation on another line but doesn't hear the whole thing because she thinks that Bob Wallace will go through with this and this will be filmed and it will just be exploiting the general. So then she decides to tell Betty Haynes what's going on. So this was a bit of a mistake. And that's the part of the movie that really doesn't quite work for me. I just didn't believe it. It's the moral of the movie is don't exploit a general for TV as if, that's the worst thing in the world. I mean, I understand what the movie's trying to say, but for Betty not even to talk to Bob Wallace about this, to see what is really going on, she is cold and detached from him for almost the rest of the picture until she realizes later on what's really going on. So, everything is resolved. And Phil Davis decides with Judy to hatch a plan to pretend they're engaged to each other to see if that helps Betty want to be engaged to Bob or something of that nature. Again, that didn't quite work for me either, I'll be honest with you. But overall, the movie has a lot of musical numbers and maybe one too many. Some that are stretched out a little bit. This is a 2-hour movie, which is not a bad thing, but I just felt there was too much. This film could have been a little bit tighter. However, there are a couple of things that are interesting about this picture, other than the fact that it's shot in Christmas and the Technicolor is beautiful, but a lot of it is just, you could tell is obviously not really filmed in the areas in which, it's all pretty much a stage. But anyhow, it was the first film to utilize Paramount's new VistaVision process with color by Technicolor. And from what I understand, it was almost like a widescreen process. So rather than the traditional, at that time, 4 perforations for a frame, they would use 8. So it would be 2 frames to elongate the image, in a sense. Not elongate. Let's just say expand the overall view of the picture. So it didn't have the 4:3 process that was done a lot. And VistaVision only lasted about 7 years. This is also the first feature to have the Perspecta directional sound system, only at limited engagements. I don't know too much about Perspecta directional sound, but that's an interesting thing about this film. But it's definitely a Christmas movie in every respect. It is a lot of fun. I love hearing Bing Crosby sing, so there's that. I love Danny Kaye singing and dancing. Vera Ellen is a very energetic performer, and she has really good comic timing. Rosemary Clooney, very engaging at first, but then by being so dour and cold and detached, I mean, I guess she played it fine, but it just didn't interest me the same way as it did the first half of the movie. Once they, segue with this little plot detail, the movie lost me a little bit, but it makes up for it with a lot of really good musical numbers, even though I think there's maybe one too many of them stretched out a little bit for this movie. And I love the ending. It was just terrific, and, I'm giving it away, but the major is, saluted by the entire regiment, and then they do their thing on stage for everybody, and so it's that type of movie. So if you like to see a slightly different type of Christmas movie, White Christmas is definitely worth checking out. And there's nothing like hearing White Christmas being sung by Bing Crosby, at least at this time of the year. So definitely a good movie, not a great one, but a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it overall, despite it being a little too long, and I didn't care for a couple of the plot developments. But nonetheless, good movie. And I mean, I would see it again, even though it's not it's hardly a great movie or a perfect one. Anyhow, tell me your thoughts. Have you seen White Christmas? What do you think of Bing Crosby, Danny Kaye? It's a great cast. It's really remarkable to see Dean Jagger too, who always seemed to look older. I don't know. Did this guy ever look young? I don't know. Dean Jagger. It's amazing. So let me your thoughts. Tell me what you think. And I'll be reviewing one more Christmas film that is not your traditional Christmas movie, but it's something I'm interested in checking out. And it's not a warm, fuzzy movie. It doesn't. This movie is like hot chocolate. It's just it warms your heart. You know. This next one I'm going to review, which I haven't watched just yet, and it's not quite as old as this picture, is not something that will warm your heart, but you'll see. So anyway, if you're a subscriber, thank you. I have a few new subscribers, which I appreciate very much for all of you who are watching my channel. And hit the notification bell for future uploads. And for those of you who haven't subscribed, please do. I review movies on occasion, both old and new, and somewhere in between, and movie-related topics as well. So, including teasers, trailers occasionally, and whatever else comes to mind. But mostly reviews. So, that's all I got to say about White Christmas. And this is Jerry Saravia at the Movies, signing off.